Good morning. All right. Thank y'all for being so patient with me while I rescheduled. Ended up having two moms go into labor whenever I was originally had this live scheduled, but I'm so excited about it. We're going to chat like cycles and seasons, menstrual cycles, how to work with our different, like the flow of our different cycles. And I have Cheryl jumping on here in just a second. Let's see. Um, like teaching other women about their bodies. So Cheryl's gonna jump on. Here she is. Good morning.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
So this is my friend Cheryl. I was just telling them that you are a pro at all the things cycles, and we're just gonna kind of jump in. So I'll let you introduce yourself. Tell us who you are. You hold a lot of titles, so I would love to just know everything.
Okay.
Oh,
I hope that my internet connection is okay. Can you hear me okay?
yeah, I can.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'm Cheryl Ameling, and my longest running certification title is childbirth educator. I guess mother is my first one, mom.
Yes.
I have six kids, and then childbirth educator for 13 years. I work on the headquarters team of Birth Boot Camp, the organization that you and I are both
Yes.
certified with. And then I this year certified as a menstrual cycle educator, which has been really, really like life changing for me and a lot of fun in um, helping other women understand their cycles, their bodies, and it's been really, really fun, and I'm really excited about like continuing that and learning, doing more and teaching more and learning more about myself too through the process.
Yeah,
So that in
for
a
sure. I didn't.
nutshell.
Yeah, I didn't even know that you could hold like a certification for menstrual cycles, which is so funny to me, but like so incredibly needed.
Yeah,
And the education that you do is phenomenal. I like my cycle. I've always just tracked it. Like if like I'm trying to conceive or trying to not conceive, that's the reason I've tracked my cycle. And it's just there's so much more depth to it. And I've learned like so much from you, just even sharing on your social media and stuff. But I feel like there's this big wave right now with social media of like really bringing this out into the world of getting to educate women on like, hey, there's more to just tracking to avoid pregnancy or trying to get pregnant. And so like we all know, when your period comes and all of that, but there's just so much more to it. And I love how like you correlate it all to different seasons and all of that. So I want you to like tell us all the things. Jump in. Start at the top, break it down. I want to like give just a good overview of the different cycles and seasons and why it's
okay.
important.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this. So I was the same way. Always, I roughly knew when I was ovulating. I roughly knew when I was going to start my period. Um, and that was really all I thought was involved, like
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about like the hormones involved or what was happening in between those, ovulating and your period. I knew like the very basics. And when I was doing the certification, I I learned so much. Like there's so much to know, and in the way that um, your hormones fluctuate throughout your entire cycle, and that affects your body, it affects your mood, it affects how you show up in the world. And I just remember there was a time, it was probably, it was probably a full year because it took several months for me to realize, and then it took several months for me to figure out what to do about it. But on day 21, like consistently, I was basket case. And I could like, I knew it was going to come. I was like, prepare myself on day 20 to tomorrow's day 21. I'm going to lose my crap. And, and then when I learned about the hormones and the seasons, I was like, oh, I get it. I understand why day 21 was so hard for me.
Oh,
Um, so so when we start at the top and break it down, the different parts of your cycle can be, you can think of them as the different seasons. So the seasons in nature. So we have spring when the world is, coming back alive, right?
yeah.
There's like this newness. And then we have summer where there's like, you're out in the world, you're doing things, you're going on vacation, the sun is out, the sun, there's just a lot of excitement uh, and like building during that time. And then we move into autumn, and autumn is where my day 21 would always, that's where it would land. And in autumn, you're starting to, if you think about it in the seasons, like you're starting to close things up, things are getting colder, you're starting to pull out your your warm clothes, you are preparing for winter, you're preparing like there's a shift, right?
Yeah, that
And
makes
then in
sense.
winter, and then in winter, we're inside with our blankets and our hot chocolate, watching movies, spending time with our families. Like it's a very internal time. And so if we think about winter being menstruation, so when we just naturally, when we're on our periods, we tend to want to stay inside, curled up in a blanket with a warm hot water bottle, heating pad, and just kind of shut out the world, right? And then spring is after, so after our bleed, after we have our period,
Mhm.
and there's this shift, like the estrogen starts to rise, and we're kind of like renewed, like we get real excited about the world, just like in the season, just like in
Yeah,
spring. Summer is when we're ovulating, and so that's when we feel our best in our bodies. If we think about what's happening biologically, we're looking for a mate. We're like our body's like, hey, let's have a baby,
yeah.
and and so we're really out in the world that way. And then autumn, my day 21 is when we really start that shift of like being out in the world and kind of closing back in
Okay.
to get ready for our next bleed.
Yeah.
So, so when I learned about all of this, it it honestly made me feel less crazy
I
because,
bet. Yeah.
like when we think about the world and how we're supposed to show up the same way every single day, regardless of how we feel, regardless of what our hormones are doing. We're expected to be the same every
Mhm.
day. And that's just not how we work as women. It's not how our bodies were literally designed. We have fluctuations in our hormones that affect us, affect how we show up in the world and how we show up for ourselves. So so yeah, it's really like when you start understanding all of that, you can give yourself more compassion, and you can do things to set yourself up for success during each of those seasons. So that's kind of has been really like life changing, and like this journey that I've been on since learning about this, since doing the certification.
Yeah. Do you feel like most women do just track their ovulation and their period? Like, is that kind of, is that typically kind of what you see as well now that you get into this? Even
Yeah,
if that, I mean, some women don't even do that. Um,
yeah,
and
yeah.
so I do think like, we're expected to show up the same every day, like very consistent. And it's just not how our bodies are wired.
Yeah. Um, I think that a lot of times women do know when they're ovulating and when they're expected to show, to start their period. I think generally I feel like women have kind of an idea of how long their cycles are, things like that.
Yeah,
But I also think that there are absolutely women who have no idea,
that's
that
so true.
just, you know, go on and you're like, oh, okay, bye. I guess I started
Yeah,
my period today. Um, and then if you're on birth control, hormonal birth control, and that obviously changes the
the
entire thing
entire
because
cycle.
you don't,
Yeah.
yeah, because you don't have those fluctuating hormones anymore. Like you really are just
So, like,
more baseline.
okay, yeah. That makes a lot of sense too. And probably, I feel like we do get so out of touch. But like there are so many people on hormonal birth control that, like the fact the the norm is that you're probably going to have a few friends that are. And so then you see them like be that baseline and you're like, oh, why am I having a day 21? Like,
Yeah,
what is wrong with me? So that does make sense, just, I don't know. I love the education side that you do of this and just like bringing in like, hey, it's normal to have a day 21. I know that you're like about to teach a class, and I want to talk about that at the end. But like of how we actually work with those different seasons. You already did a class on like the seasons as a whole, right? Like you went over just the general, like, hey, here's the education on the seasons. But now your next class is going to be like how we actually ebb and flow with our bodies and work with those seasons, which I like love that you're doing that because it's just very like practical and like, hey, this is we learn this, but here's how you actually apply it, which I think is incredibly important as well. Um, but do you feel like, I mean, obviously this changes how we work with our bodies. So like in your day 21, what was your shift overall of like realizing, okay, this is normal. So now how do you kind of treat that season, that autumn season differently?
yeah. That is such a good question. And I've thought about this and when I was doing my certification, um there's kind of a list of, ways that you can care for yourself in the different seasons that can be helpful and how you um like the way that you show up for yourself in one season will affect your next season. So how I care for myself in my summer can affect how I show up in my autumn.
Oh, interesting.
And
Okay.
right. So I realized, and again, that like this is a lifelong journey. Like this is not
Yeah.
anything that anybody gets to master. And I am new at this, so it's fun to share this information, but also like learning alongside,
Yeah.
these women that are taking my classes. So it's been really fun. Um, so one thing that I've realized the last few months is that things that don't bother me in my spring and my summer, for instance, the laundry that is sitting right over there in that chair that you can't see, it doesn't bother me. I'm in my summer. I don't care. But as
Yeah.
soon as I move into my autumn, that pile of laundry is going to make me lose my mind. So, what I've realized is that to take care of my autumn woman, my summer woman needs to make sure that that pile of
Because you're like
laundry is
productive in
gone.
the summer. Yeah.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
makes so much sense.
yeah. So there are things in our summer because we're just like there's all this estrogen and we're just like, whoa, life is good. We we're so much just kind of rolls off of us. And but in our autumn, that's when things start kind of like the things that irritate us
Uh-huh.
start showing up more. And and
Interesting.
so that pile of laundry, I need to make sure is gone before I hit my autumn so that like that's just like one example of something that I've
Right.
realized really like comes up again and again and again
I
for
mean, a
me.
very practical thing. Yeah.
Right. So if I can pinpoint things in my summer that I can take care of so that my day 21 Cheryl doesn't lose her mind, then that's good for everybody.
Your six kids are like, thank you.
Exactly. Exactly.
I love it.
Um, so yeah, so a lot of it is just kind of like it's like breaking it down into those seasons, but also like looking ahead, like what can I do now that is going to benefit me in my summer or me in my autumn or me in my winter or me in my spring.
Right.
And so it's always kind of looking forward and thinking about like what can I do for future me.
Do you like plan your vacations around this now?
I you
Are
know
you like, will you get there? Like, you're like, oh, well, maybe I should plan that whenever I'm like spring, summer or not.
exactly. No, see, that is such a good point too, because when we're in our spring and our summer, we have all this like, wow, life is good, blah, blah, blah. Like we're more resilient
Yeah.
in as that with that rise of estrogen. That one thing that is on that list of things is like, this is a really good time to like go to the dentist or have hard conversations or plan things that you're going to be like more out in the world. So
Yeah.
planning those like marketing meetings or things that you'll benefit from that rise of estrogen, from that from that excitement in being in the world, and not planning those things in your autumn on your day 21 when you're going to be bleeding.
Yeah.
Like when we think about planning vacations or planning things, like we're usually like, oh, I don't want to be on my period because that would suck. And
Uh-huh.
while that's true, like the opposite of that is like what kind of like the way that it benefits us to plan those things in our spring and our summer.
Yep.
So you're absolutely right. Like, yeah, I mean, there are women, and I aspire to be this, but really do like look at their calendar and plan things according to generally when they should be in different parts of their
Yeah.
cycle, that then they show up best for themselves and for others in that part, if I
Yeah.
worded that correctly.
I mean, I feel like after you kind of track it and really start coming to realize all these things about yourself, it becomes more second nature too. So it's like
Right.
that just kind of naturally will flow from that. Um, and it's probably not so daunting. And so, like, starting small and just like starting to realize, oh, the laundry is bothering me. Like, starting
Yep.
with something like that, it's like, oh, that's something that I know I can adjust, and it's very practical. And then as you get more and more in touch with your different cycles, like, it would become more natural, I assume, to just really um, kind of ebb and flow your life around your cycles.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of magic in that.
for sure.
And one woman that I know, she does everything on her Google Calendar. And so on the calendar days, it's, day one, day two, day three, day four. So that when she is, see, this is like high level,
Yeah,
man.
this
This
is
is like,
high level. I'm like, I don't know, I'm not that
I know,
dedicated.
I know. I'm not, I'm not there yet. Um, but so when she's planning something, she can look and see like, okay, I'm going to be on roughly day, and then she can make her
Yeah,
plans according to that. And there are things that we can't control. There are things that are going to be planned for us that are going to be on day 21, and you make the best of it. You figure it out. But there are some things that are schedulable or reschedulable, and we'll talk about that too.
yeah, I love that. I love that so much. Okay, at what point, like, in your journey, is this something you grew up just knowing about? Did you get this education as a child, or what was the shift for you to like go deep dive this and even get a certification on it?
Oh, that's such a good question. No, I didn't grow up with any of this. And honestly, I didn't even know any of this when I got married.
Yeah,
Like I was kind of like taken aside and been like, so you can get pregnant when you're ovulating around day 14 and then have your period. Like that was
yeah,
literally like what I was told. And so but based on that, and then learning more, like paying attention to my body and kind of knowing cervical fluid signs and all
right.
that sort of thing, um, I had a rough idea of kind of things that were happening. So the certification, actually, I feel like it like was so, it just happened so oddly. I apparently at some point I followed this woman who teaches the certification. I don't remember following her on Instagram. I have no memory. It must have just been one of those like, oh, that was cute, and like I clicked follow.
Yeah,
And
I love that.
um, yeah, and so she sent me a message and was like, hey, thanks for the follow. Are you interested in um, like menstrual cycle coaching or becoming a menstrual cycle educator? And I was same as you. I was like, I didn't know that was a thing. And so we ended up chatting. She talked me through the certification, and I jumped in. And so all like a lot. So I had like kind of that baseline, but I learned so much during the certification that I had no idea existed.
Yeah, yeah, I love
So
that. And like
definitely
you
not
said
something that I grew up with.
earlier, like you're on this journey of learning alongside everybody that you're just bringing on with you, and I love that. And there's such a like sweet season to that of being like, hey, like, well, I have the education, but we get to learn this on how to apply it to like our own selves
Yeah.
alongside each other, which is really cool. Okay, I want you to tell everybody about your class because I think that it is such a need. Um, to get the education out there. And so tell everybody kind of what this next class you have coming up, what it is and how they can sign up for it.
Okay, perfect. So it's on cyclical self-care. So like you said earlier, I taught a class already on the inner seasons, and so that like dove deep into spring, summer, autumn, and winter. And we'll talk about those in this class, but it'll be more of an overview. This class is going to be like really practical ways for you to apply for you to show up best for yourself during
Yeah.
each season. So we'll talk about the different seasons. We'll talk about like how you show up, ways to care for yourself, and then a to-do list. So
Okay. I
we'll
love a
talk
good
like
list.
girl, me too, me too. So we'll talk about like how we can like practical ways that we can show up, like getting rid of the laundry in the
Mhm.
summer, and really how to start like thinking about those things, how to start like assessing those things. Like it took me a lot of years to realize that on day 21, that pile of laundry is going to make me crazy. So I better get rid of it before day 21.
Yeah.
um, so kind of like how to look at your life, how to self-reflect so that you can show up for yourself better. But then that to-do list, I love a good list too. So my goal is that you leave the class understanding your body, understanding the hormones and the different seasons, and then ways for you to be like, okay, what can I start with?
Yeah.
How can I show up best for myself in this next season that I'm moving into?
Yeah. I love that. When is the class?
The class is November 16th
Okay.
at 10 o'clock on Zoom. And it's $37, and you can register on my website, which is darlingbirth.com. And if you'll get a replay, so even if you can't show up or something happens and
Yeah.
you're not able to show up, you'll get a replay.
Somebody's in their autumn season and they decide not to. Yeah, that's fine.
Exactly, exactly. Or day
Okay, I
21
love
and you
that.
just
I'll
cannot show up.
post whenever I like share this live. I will post your website in the comments so that people can easily just find that and go sign up. And so they can just go to your website. It's linked there. They can pay the $37, sign up, and then they'll get an email with the Zoom link and all the information, I'm sure. Okay, is there a way like to go back and watch the other training that you did?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, they can just email me
Okay.
and then which all my information is on my website.
Yeah.
And you can just pay the $37 and I'll send you the link.
Okay.
So yeah.
Awesome. I love it. So if they wanted to watch that one before this next one, I
Mhm.
don't feel like it's completely necessary. I
Right.
mean, I feel like you'll kind of go over the basics and then jump into how, but I know that you like probably went into a lot of depth in that first training too. So if somebody's interested, I wanted to know that that was an option. That's awesome. Okay, so darlingbirth.com is where people can like find you. Um, your what about social media? Where do you hang out?
I hang out a lot here on
Okay.
Instagram. So Darling Birth on Instagram, and I also have a Facebook that's Darling Birth also. So
Okay,
Darling
perfect. So
Birth,
you're just darling birth
all the
everywhere.
places.
That's perfect. That is perfect. Yay. Okay, well, I'm glad that we got to hang out today
Me
finally. Sorry for
too.
rescheduling and all the things. Thank you for being flexible, but tis the life that we live. And we love it. So, yeah, I'm glad that we got to still do this and just bring this education to everybody. You're just such a wealth of knowledge, and I love learning
Oh,
from you as well. So, thanks for hanging with me
thank
and we'll
you. Thanks for
chat soon.
having me.
Yeah, of course.
Bye.
Bye.